Φίλες και φίλοι, γεια σας. 2.500 χρόνια από τότε που ο Αριστοφάνης έγραψε τις Εκκλησιάζουσες, εξακολουθούν να υπάρχουν στον κόσμο εκατομμύρια γυναικείες φωνές, οι οποίες διεκδικούν όλο και πιο επιτεκτικά την ενεργό συμμετοχή των γυναικών στα κοινά και ιδιαίτερα στην οικονομία και τις επιχειρήσεις. Ίσως γιατί η γυναικεία ηγεσία είναι διαφορετική. Στο πλαίσιο αυτών των προσπαθειών, πριν από 20 περίπου χρόνια, στις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες της Αμερικής ξεκίνησε μια πρωτοβουλία η οποία σήμερα έχει εξελιχθεί σε έναν παγκόσμιο αναγνωρισμένο θεσμό. Πρόκειται για την Παγκόσμια Διάσκεψη των Γυναικών, το Global Summit of Women, η οποία πραγματοποιείται σε κάθε χρόνο σε διαφορετικά μέρη του κόσμου. Στόχος αυτής της διάσκεψης είναι η ανταλλαγή γόνιμων και επικοδομητικών ιδεών, αλλά και βέλτιστων πρακτικών αναφορικά με το ρόλο της γυναίκας. Φέτος είναι η σειρά της Αθήνας. Εμπνευστής αυτής της μεγάλης πρωτοβουλίας είναι η Dr. Irene Natividad, αμερικανικής καταγωγής, η οποία είναι μια προσωπικότητα με παγκόσμιο κύρος, μια ακούραστη ακτιβίστρια και η οποία είναι σήμερα κοντά μας για να μας μιλήσει για το συνέδριο και για τη γυναίκα και το ρόλο της στην οικονομία. Dr. Natividad, welcome to Athens and thank you for being with us today.
Delighted to be here.
Let me start with the first question. You are a successful leader and you wear many different hats. You are the president of the Global Summit of Women, you are the co-chair of the Corporate Women Directors International, and you are owner of your own public affairs firm in Washington, D.C. Just to name a few, what are the ingredients of successful female leadership?
Well, leadership in general means that you not only have a vision, but you persuade other people to follow you with that vision. You also, in my book, it's not enough to dream, but you have to know how to get there. I'm a worker. I'm a doer. It's, the expression, the devil is in the details. If you don't know how to conquer the details, you can't do. So, there are leaders who can dream and talk about it. I dream, I talk about it, and I do. And I think that's the difference. I think women's leadership tends to be much more horizontal rather than vertical.
Meaning?
Meaning that they want to bring others in that vision and ask for the other people's opinions as opposed to telling everyone necessarily what to do. It's not hierarchical, it's more horizontal.
I understand that the nature of the woman enables this role as a leader, the mother role and the soft nature of a woman, or not? That
I have known
differently.
I have known tough women. There was nothing soft about my mother. But I think in general, she was, as I was saying earlier, she was a typical Asian mother who pushed her children to be excellent in education, excellent in whatever we did. My parents never talked to me about marriage being the only thing that I was destined for. In fact, they never talked about marriage. Instead, what they wanted from all of their daughters, there were 3 daughters and 1 son, was to achieve. My mother said, I don't care what it is, just be number 1.
That's a very good message. Be
it's
good
a lot
at
of
what
pressure.
you're doing, huh? I know it's a lot of pressure, but okay, we live in a man's world after all, huh? But I would like to ask you, is it challenging for you to lead at these difficult times?
Leading is hard no matter when you do it. There's no reason for an advocate if things are terrific. A friend of mine asked me, she said, are you still doing that women's thing? And I said, it's not like a dress you take off and you put it on the bed. I said, it's called commitment. The last time I looked, we don't have equality. It's always hard. It's never easy to try to bring about change. It gets a little tougher when the outside world is tougher. But leading has nothing to do with comfort.
That's very true, but I think that women are used to difficult things, isn't it? We're not so spoiled.
Well, there's some women who are spoiled, but
Well-
for the most part, because we have to juggle many parts of our lives,
Exactly.
whether it's our children, our parents, our community, our job, our colleagues, there's always a lot of things to juggle. I always use this metaphor. I said, think of a woman making supper, okay? She's telling the children, go do your homework right now. She's got one kid over here. She's stirring the pot, and everything has to be served warm at the same time. That's why women are multitaskers, okay? Everything has to work out and be at the table and warm. So that's the woman.
Well, let's move on to the corporate world. Female leadership in the corporate world. You've been there, I've been there. We know what it takes to make your way up. Does it make a difference having a woman on the top of an organization?
Well, actually, we did a study of this. Right now in the United States, there are only 15 women CEOs in the 500 largest companies in my country. That is ridiculous. But we looked at women CEOs in 39 countries, 113 women. And what we found was that it didn't matter which country or which company. When a woman is in charge, there are more women on the board and there are more women in senior management. And what's amazing is that that pattern stayed no matter where we looked. And it's not as if these women said, oh, I will be an advocate for women. That's not their priority. It's to make a business successful. But because they are women, they're open to talent of all kinds. And by happenstance, they bring other women along. So this was a wonderful study. I mean, we did it last year, and it was so nice to look at this data that gave proof for something that I always felt was true, that women do bring other women along. And I did it because I get so bored when women say, you know, women don't help other women. Well, maybe not some of them, but let me tell you, for the most part, they do. When you look at women outside of corporate and look at politics, all the legislation that have to do with women's better life, enabling women to do better, come from women legislators. It doesn't matter what party. So, you know, I hate negative stuff stopping us. I would rather work for a man than for a woman. I have heard women say that. I think that's wrong.
Well, there are prejudices also among women. So, in other words, you may say that women have emotional intelligence. And
They have I think both men and women have
Yeah.
EQ, but women have a higher level of it. It enables them to sense perhaps what's going on a lot earlier in terms of the people that they work with or deal with than men. And I think going forward, it's a skill that's even much more necessary.
Just another question. You said earlier that having women on board and at the top of the company, it does make a difference for other women. What about the male staff? Does it make a positive difference, or what kind of difference does it make for male?
To have women?
To have women on the top. How do they behave from your own experience?
Depends on the
And what you
man and
heard.
depends on the company. For the most part, clearly women have been blocked from leadership roles. It is a man's world. The corporate world, the political world, we are not in charge. That's just the bottom line. So what some men try to do is to bring other women along, some men, a few. In fact, at this Global Summit of Women, I brought one of them. He is Dick Evans. He was the former CEO of Alcan, which is an aluminum and mining company. He had 5 or 6 direct reports to him, presidents of divisions. 4 of those 6 were women. In a non-traditional industry like mining and aluminum, those 4 women are now CEOs in their own right. So there are some men who do promote other women. I think it helps when they have daughters. He has 2. and he's bringing one of them to this summit. She owns a bookstore, and he's as proud of her as anybody else. But there are other men who do feel threatened and who don't foster the development of leadership roles for women in the corporate world. For the most part, in the U.S., only 16% of senior executives are women. 16%.
Yeah, that's very sad.
I mean, give me a break.
And that's amazing, but because we know all that women today make up half the workforce worldwide. So they enter first to the universities, they finished with summa cum laude, they are good, but they don't make it up. So just a general question, are companies willing to invest in women?
It depends. Let me tell you about Europe. Right now, women overpopulate your universities, okay? So there is a pool of talent. At the same time, Europe is suffering a, what do you call this? It's not suffering so much unemployment as you don't have enough workers in the future, okay? Especially in countries like Germany, for instance, because somehow women aren't giving birth at the same rate. So the best way to address that deficit is to hire more women. In fact, the World Bank this year came out with a study that said gender equality is good for business. No economy of the world succeeds when over half of its talent isn't utilized. So it is not a fairness issue, it is a business issue. Getting women not only hired, but also promoted into leadership roles within companies is a necessity. It's a business case for why women should be there.
Apart from that, we all know that women are the drivers of consumption of the market. Women are decision makers in the family, so they are key drivers. And after all, women give birth to the children, to the future consumers in the market. Well, actually, I would like to ask you, I also tried to make up my way, and it was rather difficult. I was told that it's very difficult to break the glass ceiling. Literally, a CEO, a European CEO once told me, it's very difficult. And then I told him, I answered back, Mr. So-and-so, times change. That's a big message. That's a big message to.
So clearly, where we need to do work is at the upper level. And I have been doing research on women on corporate boards for a long time, and I am a big proponent of it. And one of the things that Europe is doing right is setting up quotas for women on corporate boards. It's now in Norway, it is in Spain, it's in Belgium, it's in Italy, it's in Iceland. You know, I mean, Italy has a quota. The Netherlands has a quota. And then if you added quotas for state-owned companies, it's even more countries involved. And what that does is open doors much more rapidly than just saying, you know, in time, the young women will rise to the top. Well, it didn't happen. We thought if we could just get them into universities, get them hired, that they would naturally go up. Well, it didn't happen.
Well, I once heard that, I just playing the devil's advocate, that women are not self-confident enough to make their way up. And that's why they do not dare, like men. They are afraid.
When you don't have
how valid is that?
When you don't have role models of success, if you don't see yourself at the top, how can you imagine being there? That is why it's wrong to have only 15 women CEOs out of 500. If my country, the United States, never had a woman president, how can you envision that a woman could be president? Okay? It's circular. So that's how come role models are very, very important. How can you imagine it when you've not seen it? How can you imagine ambition when you don't see ambition realized?
I would like to move on to your summit. And when we had a private conversation, you said, I'm an advocate.
Yep.
Okay. Tell me about this summit. Your events offer women a unique opportunity to meet with successful professionals, influencers, opinion leaders. How important is networking for business success?
Extremely important. Any successful male or female corporate leader will tell you, or entrepreneur, that networking is key. That's how the men succeed. So I wanted to create a global network for women and a forum where they could somehow be part of the global economy, get to understand global, and learn from each other. You know, in the international business meetings of the World Bank, the WTO, the World Economic Forum, count how many women are in the audience. Count how many women are speakers. Very few. So I wanted women to have their own business forum, and by self-selection, so that nobody, okay, you can go to this meeting, but not you. No, I wanted women to self-select, and they have come. So it's been wonderful to see it grow to where it is now. At the summit, we have 70 countries represented. The biggest delegation is from Malaysia, coming to Greece. The Vice President of Vietnam is here with a delegation of 48 women entrepreneurs chosen by the Vietnam Chamber. There are some of them who are going to be in business-to-business meetings to meet with some Greek entrepreneurs who may be their counterparts to see if there's a possible alliance. But also there is something intangible. It's called inspiration. You know, to get out of the summit and feel wings on your back because you feel it's possible. I mean, I think that's as important as one idea, you know, one business alliance. But I like them to get all of it. People talk global, but their experience of global is actually very, very slim. So, for instance, I've been asked to speak in many European forums. When they say global, they mean Europe. I'm the darkest person in the room normally. But this summit is really global. We got Congo and Bangladesh and Spain and Azerbaijan, and I've got Poland and Hungary.
How many attendees are expected to?
800.
800, which is big. And I would like to ask you, why did you choose Greece? Greece is experiencing the worst crisis in its recent history. You said before that entrepreneurs are attending the meeting, so maybe, and I just ask, maybe there is a chance to contact Greek women, women who want to take their life in their hands and jumpstart their life. What is the purpose and the target?
You know, I always say, when there's a natural disaster, you run and help. You're in an economic disaster, so we're here to help.
Oh, it's moving.
We're
it's
going
really
to,
moving.
We're going to try. We're going to spend money. That's important. You need new business. And we're encouraging the women to see other parts of Greece and to spend money. We also want possible investors in Greece who happen to be women. We also want to give the women here some ideas, some contacts, and I said inspiration to try something different. I also want other news about Greece that's not just about the crisis. I want to showcase some of the business women here who are making a difference and who are doing very well. Nobody ever sees that. In fact, before coming here, our last e-newsletter, I featured the women, some of the women who will be speaking here who are Greek. Because outside of the summit, I want the rest of the world to see. You know, there's not enough of that. It's too much of this, oh, woe is me, things are awful. Okay, they're awful. Go do something about it. Enough with the whining.
Women can adopt, they can be the ambassadors, and you are an ambassador, and we thank you very, very much as a Greek, and I'm really moved to hear that you're willing to help us. And I know there are many women who are willing and have aspiration. There is a productive Greece, and we want the best for our country. And I'm very, very unhappy that only negative message is disseminated. So this summit constitutes a unique opportunity for all of us here in Greece to convey our message to the world. We want to be in the euro, we want to grow, we want to move forward. We want to become a very, very developed European country. And you can take it for granted, because I think that now I can speak on behalf of Greek women who are active in the real corporate world. Do you have concrete examples of women who got inspired and then they started their own business?
Or who had businesses already,
Yeah.
and then grew them bigger. In Barcelona, for instance, there was a woman in the bathroom selling pashmina shawls out of a suitcase. And she was very clever. She said, all the women have to go to the bathroom. So she was doing very well. And, you know, pretty soon I go out and there's somebody selling something else there and something else there. So finally, and the hotel is angry at me because it's against fire rules. So that's the beginning of Wexpo, the Women's Expo, where we now have booths where women can showcase their product. Well, that woman now has a partner in Iceland and a partner in Japan, whom she would never have met had she not been at the summit. And out of shawls alone, she has made very good money. So that's at the most micro level. And then there are others who are in the corporate world who then say, you know, I went to the summit and I decided, I think I want to start my own business. So who sort of changed their minds as to what to do. In the ministerial round table, I had this ministers from South Africa. I remember in Barcelona. And she was sitting next to this woman from Barcelona, one of the top business women. And she says, well, what does your country need? She said, you know, I really need to get funding for a water treatment plant. And she talked about this. And this was at dinner. By the time she left, the government, this woman got her in touch with the government of Catalonia. They invested in the water treatment plant of that woman, that minister. She was so proud when she arrived in South Africa. She announced immediately that this happened. And it was just a conversation. So it doesn't even have to be a formal session. You know, you never know where it's going to come from. And I love that story. She was forever grateful. And I was just delighted that that was an example of how it can work when women connect. Barcelona, South Africa. Because if you have a woman from Azerbaijan, I can guarantee you an American doesn't even know what Azerbaijan is. But when you're sitting across the table, all of a sudden, you learn the globe. Women have to understand global in a real way. We have a lot of women here from Asia because Asia is booming. So I tell the women, go there, make the contact, they're right here. Women make deals when they meet people face to face and they have faith in another person. I said, it's hard to get partners. You'd have to go there. I said, go meet them.
So having said all that, I understand that this meeting's aim is to make people understand that crisis is not just a negative thing. Crisis can generate or offer opportunities. And this is the main message.
Well, because it makes you rethink.
Yeah.
You cannot do the same old, the same way. So you have to figure out, what am I going to do going forward? So if you hear an idea or, you know, or you feel like all of a sudden, I can do this, then it's great. I tell people if you come to a summit and you get one idea or one contact or you get inspired, you've done well. You know, it's well worth it.
Let's become more personal, if you allow me. Women are multitasking. They have to arrange everything with the right hand, with the left hand, with both hands, and maybe with the feet as well. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, there is a reality, work-life balance. Mm-hmm. I experienced it myself for many, many years as a member of the corporate world. And you said that you seem to have managed to find balance between a career and family. What does it take to achieve that?
Marry the right guy. I mean, I was lucky. There's no getting around it. If you don't have a great partner, partner is the key word, then marriages can't succeed. I lucked out. I met somebody when I was at university. He shares half of it. Couldn't have done it without him. When I was this magazine in the United States, Working Mother, chose me as one of 25 most influential working mothers. Hillary was one of them, Clinton. And so she invited us at the White House, and we were allowed to bring one guest. So people brought their mothers, daughters, etc. I brought my husband. He was the only man in the whole place. Because it is important for my son, who's seen, his father do food shopping or do the laundry, you give messages that you don't have to talk about. A long time ago, from the beginning, we just said, you know what? Whoever cooks doesn't wash. So I cook, he washes the dishes, If he does the laundry, I fold. We don't even talk about it anymore. We've been married 37 years, That's a record in the U.S. And it does take two. But
it always takes
It always takes two. It's division of labor. Now, work-life balance, there's no such thing. I think there are periods in your life when career is important. There are periods in your life where the children are important. And the way to navigate it is to be in an organization, whether it's a government institution or a corporation, that allows you to be able to take care of your job as well as take care of your family. And the companies that do well have such plans in place because they want to keep their women. They want to keep, and men. Because now the younger generation, say in the United States, the men want to have as much say about their families and their children and to be part of it as the women do. So, I think work-life is actually the biggest conundrum and the biggest hurdle for women achieving equality in the workplace. Somebody has to take care of the children. And usually it's the woman, plus she has a job. And women don't go to work just to prove my talents. They go to work because they have to. Things cost a lot more now than they did before. So, it remains the biggest issue. It's one of the things that, we try to urge governments and companies to deal with. In Sweden, they give a required paternity leave. In other words, if a man has a child and he doesn't take the paternity leave, he is taxed by the government. And the result? Divorce rates have gone down, women's wages have gone up because there's no interruption in their careers, and they're better fathers. This is social engineering. This is the most extreme kind, and of course Sweden would come up with it. But they found out in the past that when you only had maternity leave, the women suffer. They will take it, but then their careers are broken and their wages go down. So that's when the government said, okay, we're going to have paternity leave. So it's a good model, but it's, it works for a small country like Sweden. The U.S. is never going to do that, unfortunately. Europe has a sense of being a welfare state. In fact, the Norwegian Minister for Women, who's a man, told me this. He says, we feel it's our job to create a level playing field, the government. In the U.S., we have a mentality, each person must pull himself up by his bootstraps. It's the individual. So we don't have a women's bureau or ministry for women in the United States. The women's organizations, of which I have led two big ones, became the ministry for women. We pushed for legislation, we supported women candidates, we lobby, we do whatever we had to do. So the culture of the country is the Horatio Alger story. Somebody who becomes successful on his own terms and in his own way. And we are not to lean on government or anybody else. That's the American mentality. It's what makes it vital. It's why it's so entrepreneurial. But it does not help in terms of building a family.
But this is an important issue, believe me.
Oh,
every woman.
It's not just I believe it, I know it.
Yeah, I think that has the summit been dealing with all these issues in the past, or is
always? In fact, what we try to, let's see, even at this summit, nobody solved it really. So all we can do is share what I call best practices, some corporate best practices, some governmental best practices, and that's all you can do.
Okay, that's but the message is rather political and rather human. Husbands, please help your wives.
Actually, Spain tried to legislate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how are you going to make it happen?
Well, let
No,
the
they did.
politicians
They
think
passed the
about
law.
it. Let the
Yeah.
politicians think about it and act. We're coming to an end, but
Sure.
before I would like to go through the so-called Marcel Proust questionnaire. It's like a quiz, it's like a play. Now, I will ask you, what is your favorite virtue?
Honesty,
Your favorite qualities in a man?
empathy,
Your favorite qualities in a woman?
empathy,
Your chief characteristic?
strong,
What do you appreciate the most in your friends?
the ability to be frank with them,
Your main fault?
idealistic. But it's also my main asset.
Your favorite occupation or hobby?
I like ballets. I took some lessons when I was growing up, and I still go to the ballet whenever I can.
Your idea of happiness?
Winning the lottery so I don't have to raise money for my causes.
What is your present state of mind?
Anxious,
Your favorite motto?
be prepared.
And what legacy would you like to leave?
I think it is not, it's sort of full of hubris to think of a legacy. I want to do well while I'm here.
Thank you very, very much. It's been a great pleasure meeting you, having this interview. On behalf of the European Business Review, I would like to wish every success in your endeavors and in the upcoming meeting. Thank you very, very much.
I was delighted.